Welcome into the show, everybody. Sunday, September 7th, recap of week 2 of college football. There's a lot to talk about. Some said that week 2 of college football is going to be a sleeper weekend. Nothing good is going to really happen. We'll only have one high-key, marquee matchup that you want to tune into, and that was the OU Michigan game. That's what some people were saying. If you listen to the Ian Fritz show, if you pay attention to what I say, what I put out there, you would have known that this weekend was going to be anything but a sleeper weekend. You would have known that we would come out of this weekend confused, conflicted, not knowing who the best teams are, if there are any best teams, what to think about certain teams that we thought maybe were really good, what to think about teams that we thought maybe weren't good at all, but maybe have shocked us. There's a lot to discuss. Week 2 has taught us a lot. If you remember, let's flash back to week 2 of 2024. Notre Dame, Fighting Irish, they lose to the Northern Illinois football team. And I came on this show and I said, Notre Dame, we need to figure some things out or this could be disastrous. And you know what Notre Dame did the rest of that year? They figured it out and they went and played for a national title game. Okay, I'm not saying any of the teams that lost this weekend are going to play for a national title. I'm saying anything but that. I'm just saying we can overreact, yes, because that is what our emotions do to us. They get us high, they get us low, they get us all over the place, especially mine. I ebb and flow more than most with emotions, okay? I overreact. But we need to dial it back. We need to react appropriately, and we need to discuss what has been shown on the field, okay? We're not projecting what's going to happen. We're not predicting what's going to happen. We're discussing what has happened, and with our eyes, we are going to talk about it. Okay, let's jump in. The show is right there. We got game recaps. We got 3 of them. Then we got muffins. You're thinking, what's a muffin? Tune in. Stay tuned for that. You'll want to watch it. And then we have the what if poll, which is my top 25, and I will explain why it is the what if poll. We're jumping right in. First game, the Michigan Oklahoma only ranked matchup. Only the second time these two blue bloods have ever played in the history of college football. We were in the building, folks. The Ian Fritz Show was in the building because every big-time college football personality was there, so we had to make it happen. We had to get in the building for this one, and boy, oh boy, was I glad we got there, okay? What a game, first of all. This was electric. Hats off to the Oklahoma Sooners and the crowd. The crowd was unbelievable. It was deafening. It was deafening. No shock for Bryce Underwood. Not surprised he couldn't hear. There were a lot of communication issues for that Michigan offense. They were huddling, then they were breaking out of their huddle. That sound level, those decibel levels rose and rose. And the offensive line was turning around. What are we doing, Bryce? What are we doing, Bryce? I don't know what we're doing. And there was some confusion. There was some conflict on that Michigan offense. And credit the Oklahoma Sooner fan base. College football is the best. That atmosphere, those things, the shotguns, the boomer Sooner back and forth, the Sooner Schooner, all of those things you only get in college football. This game was the epitome of why it's the best. Also, the next 2 games are the epitome of why college football is the best. Now, let's talk about the game. If you are new here, I do a game preview for several games every week. Stay tuned for that for week 3, upcoming this week on a Tuesday. I previewed this game. I had 4 things that I thought were going to happen in this football game. I was 3 for 4 on those. Let's jump right in. Where was I right? Okay, I said John Mateer will come out of this game and people are going to know his name. People are going to be like, this kid is an incredible football player. And what do you know? We're looking at the stats right here on the screen. You're looking at the game last night and you're thinking, yeah, he misses some throws. He misses some throws that you wish he would hit. He throws in some places where you're like, hey, John, okay, we'd be okay if you didn't throw it there. But you leave the game because the very next play after he throws into triple coverage and you're like, what are you doing? He makes some absurd movement, absurd pocket presence where he throws the ball across the field. Only place his wide receiver can get it, and it is unbelievable. And you say, that is a guy I want on my football team. That is John Mateer. That's what I said would happen. I said this guy is going to come out of this game and everybody's going to know his name and everybody is going to believe in that guy. And it happened, okay? The second thing that I said would happen in this football game was that BV and that Oklahoma Sooner defense were going to bring the pressure on Bryce Underwood, and they were going to blitz, and they were going to come after him and make him uncomfortable. If you watch this game, if you don't even watch this game and you can just look at Bryce Underwood's stats right there, you would know that this kid was under pressure all night. The sack numbers weren't there for the Sooners. They only got one sack in this entire game. However, that pocket was suffocating. It was suffocating in on Bryce Underwood the entire game. And credit to Underwood. The 142 yards passing, 3 passes, I believe, were for like 120 yards total. So in those 3 plays, he had to make something happen. It was where the pocket, collapsed on him. He got out of there and made something happen with his legs and threw it down the field. So Bryce Underwood, stat line, not great for this. We predicted it wasn't going to be that great here on the Ian Fritz Show because of the environment, the atmosphere. His first road start, it was always going to be difficult. The kid is talented. You can see it on those 3 plays that I just referenced. However, we knew BB was going to come at him and get to him. The third thing I said was going to be that was going to happen in this football game, and that I was right about, was Michigan's defense was going to be solid all night, okay? If you look at this game, you watch the game, you think, yeah, Michigan's defense, they probably played well enough to win this football game. They got 2 turnovers, defense/special teams. They forced 2 turnovers for Oklahoma, and they gave Michigan 2 opportunities on the opposite side of the 50 to go get points, and Michigan was never able to capitalize. So that defense for the Michigan Wolverines played solid like we said they would. Now, there was one prediction where I was wrong. I thought Michigan would own the line of scrimmage. Now own meaning they would play the line of scrimmage offensively and defensively better than Oklahoma, not own it as in just completely dominate it, okay? But you come out of the game saying, yeah, Michigan's line of scrimmage play was better than Oklahoma's. I leave this game, I think, no, it was not, okay? Oklahoma's defensive line ate Michigan's offensive line alive. They dominated that for the majority of the football game. And then OU's offensive line, yeah, there were some busts, there were some missed, there wasn't a lot of push in the run game, okay? They need to work on that. However, they wore on them, and they wore on them, and they wore on them for the entire game. You know how I know that's true? Well, let me just tell you this right here, folks. The last drive for the Oklahoma Sooners, aside from the kneel down, OU gets the ball with 10 minutes left in this football game. It is an 8-point game, 21-13. OU then proceeds to go on a 16-play, 78-yard drive that ends at Michigan's 2-yard line for 8 minutes and 27 seconds. And OU kicks a field goal to ice the game 24-13 with a minute and a half left. It was basically over. Michigan had no timeouts left. It was over from that point forward. Let me read that again. 16 plays, 78 yards, 8.5 minutes. That's a Michigan Wolverine-esque drive, folks. You know what Michigan's been doing to people for the past 3 years? OU just did it to Michigan. They took it to them when the offense was ready to roll, when the defense was suffocating. They were hurting. They were tired. Oklahoma took it to them, and that offensive line was able to wear on them at the end of the game. Of those 16 plays, 13 of those were rushing attempts, and you're thinking, what? Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, it is impressive. OU was able to wear down the Michigan defense with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. That is unbelievable. That is why I was wrong about the lines of scrimmage. Now, I also had 2 questions going into this game. The first one, the O-line play from OU, was it going to be good enough against this Michigan defense? The second question was, will Bryce Underwood be able to handle the pressure of this environment, of the pressure in the pocket, of the pressure with his name? Okay, first question, O-line play from OU. I think we got an answer. This was the first time all 5 of these guys have ever played together. They're going up against a very experienced secondary, mid linebackers, line of scrimmage, defensive line against the Michigan Wolverines. All of those guys are experienced, and this is the first time all 5 of those starters have played against a very good defense, and they held their own. They held their own, okay? 4 of the 5 starters in this game were different from last week. 4 new starters for OU. The line of scrimmage play was awesome. It was so much better than I thought it was going to be. That's why it was a question. Can they get it figured out? And they got it figured out. That's an O-line for the Oklahoma Sooners that is going to be able to play in the SEC this year. Everybody needs to be on the lookout. The second question, will Bryce be able to handle the pressure? I thought I knew the answer to this question. I think we got it. He was not able to. And that's not any fault of his own, okay? The kid is 18 years old. He just turned 18 3 weeks ago. He's going to be really good, ladies and gentlemen. He is going to be really good. But this environment, that defense was always going to be a hard task for Bryce Underwood. So you're looking at that 9 for 24, 142 yards. Not great, okay? Not great at all. Oklahoma, everybody needs to be on the lookout. They didn't play far from their best game, and they had a lot of mistakes. They had some busts defensively that gave Michigan some big plays. You're looking at that rushing stat for Michigan right there next to me, 32 for 146. Half of that was one play. They had one 75-yard rush. Okay, half of their rushing yards, one play. The rest of the game, OU was dominating that line of scrimmage, and that one rush play was a bust by a corner and a safety. Okay, Oklahoma's going to be really good, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody needs to be on the lookout. Sound the alarm. The Oklahoma Sooners are coming, and they're coming fast. Okay, we've been on them since January, but the whole world is starting to come around. Hey, maybe Ian was right. Maybe Ian was right about this team. We were. Next game up. This is one that a lot of people want to talk about probably. You have the USF Bulls, South Florida Bulls, going to Gainesville to play the Florida Gators that I was really high on, that I loved, that I thought, oh, baby, the Florida Gators are going to be good, ladies and gentlemen. I was wrong. Hand up. I have no shame in saying when I was wrong, because everybody's wrong at some point, folks. I was right about OU. I was right about that game. I was wrong here, and I need to come clean, okay? Look, stats, if you look at the stats in this game, you didn't watch the game, you would think, I mean, it's pretty even, but if you just gave me the stats, you'd probably say, yeah, Florida ends up winning that football game. Just looking at the stats, they're basically even for the entire game, and if they're basically even, you think probably the better team wins the football game. The more talented team would win the football game. You would be incorrect, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about it. South Florida, they win at home against Boise State last week, dominate Boise State last week, and I was on USF last week, and I thought, yeah, I just don't see the Boise State thing happening again this year. Okay, but I was against them this week, and Alex Golesh, he probably saw that and said, this Ian Frisch show, they don't know what they're talking about here. What are they talking about? They're doubting us. They're doubting me. They're doubting you, Byron Brown. They're doubting every single one of you guys wearing a green Bulls uniform, okay? They are doubting South Florida, and we don't want them to doubt South Florida. That's probably something that Alex Golesh told his team against these Florida Gators on Saturday, okay? Alex Golesh is one of the best coaches in the entire country. This man will not be in South Florida next year. He may be in South Florida, but he will not be the coach of South Florida. He may be the coach of the Florida Gators. Okay, that's how good he is. And we'll get to Billy Napier here in a second. Alex Golesh is unbelievable as a head coach. He's done nothing but win. He's built a very solid, tough program there at South Florida. Look, I tweeted this during the USF Boise State game. I said Byron Brown has some Cam Newton qualities. Okay, he's tall, he can throw a deep ball, he can run over people. Now, I'm not saying he's gonna be Cam Newton. Nobody will ever be Cam Newton. I'm saying he has some of the similar qualities. He's kind of built like Cam Newton, and he kind of plays a little bit like Cam Newton. He's not as good as Cam Newton was. Okay, don't misinterpret, construe, move around what I'm saying. He has qualities of Cam Newton, okay? And he displayed them yesterday. 17 for 66 on the ground. Not going to jump out at you with yards per rush or anything like that. However, college stacks, drop your numbers. He had some really nice scrambles yesterday where he made some guys miss, ran over some guys on the Florida defense. And 23 for 36, 263 and a touchdown. That is great stuff from Byron Brown. The USF Bulls are for real. It doesn't get any easier for the Bulls this week. They go to Miami this week. You get Florida Gators, and then you're thinking, oh, we just beat the hardest team on our schedule. No, you didn't. You have to go play Miami this week. Watch out, Miami. Hopefully you watch this game, and hopefully your head coach is saying, these guys are no slouches. We can't just look over them and be like, yeah, this is a G5 team, coach. We're good, coach. No. Not with an Alex Golesh head coach team coming your way. You are not good. You are not in the clear. Florida, disappointment all around. Sadness is probably the best word to describe what is happening there right now. It's sad. Discouraging may even be a better word. It's discouraging to see what happened. I thought there was a lot of promise for the Florida Gators this year. DJ Lagway, I thought he was going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country, and he may get there by the end of the year. But the man hasn't played a lot of football this year. He hasn't played a lot of football. And you're thinking, yeah, nobody's played a lot of football, Ian. Nobody has. Yeah, this man hasn't practiced all year, basically, because he's been dealing with a lot of injuries. And it's showing up. It is showing up in college football right now. He looks rusty, okay? And I'm not saying that as an excuse. I'm saying that as a fact, as though that aided in why they lost. That was a big reason in why they lost. It's discouraging. It is discouraging as a guy that believed in these Florida Gators. And I still think they can be good by the end of the season. But to lose to USF at home in the way they did, they didn't impose their will on USF. I'm not saying they got imposed upon, but they didn't impose their will like they should have. This should have been an imposing game where the Florida Gators take it to USF and they show them who the more physical team is, who the team running the SEC is, who the team with the highly touted superstar quarterback is, who the team with the swamp is, okay? That's what this should have been from the Florida Gators. It was discouraging. It was a disappointment. It was sad to see if you're a Florida Gator fan. Billy Napier, your head it was already on the chopping block coming into this season. The knife is getting closer and closer and closer to his neck. Billy Napier may not survive this season. He may not survive this season. It may not even last until the end of next week. By the time we're doing this video next week, we could be saying Billy Napier is out of there in Gainesville, Florida. You know why? Because Florida goes to Death Valley and they play the 4th-ranked LSU Tigers Saturday night. You just got your butt kicked by Florida, by South Florida, and you got to go to Death Valley on a Saturday night. Good luck, Florida Gators. Good luck. Next game up, Arizona State at Mississippi State. Going to take a sip here from the patented mug. If you want one of these, let me know in the comments below. Send it to the email in the comments below. Leave a voicemail at the comment below, and we will get one headed your way. That's unbelievable, folks. Spring water, fresh spring water. That's all I drink. Okay. Arizona State, Mississippi State, Starkville, Mississippi. Cowbells ringing, Cowboys clanging. We were all over this one. As much as I was wrong about the South Florida game, I was right about this game. Okay, we had Mississippi State. We had them in this football game, and we saw this one coming. We've been doubting Arizona State all off season. We were some of the only doubters against Arizona State coming into the season. I predicted them to go 8-4 this season, and you would have thought the Arizona State homers. Yes, there are Arizona State homers. You would have thought I burned the entire country to the ground with the outrage I was faced with about the Arizona State Sun Devil record prediction. Well, it may be coming true, and it may be a little worse than we think, okay? Because if there's one thing true about this football game, is that you would have never thought they lost in the way that they did. I thought Mississippi State was going to win this football game. I didn't think they were going to win it in the fashion that they did, okay? Blake Shapen, awesome all night long. He looks back to his pre-injury form. The guy can sling the football. He can throw the deep ball. Brendan Thompson, OU transfer, speed for days. This guy can run by anybody, and he can run by anybody fast, and he can catch it. The first touchdown catch for Brendan Thompson, he was looking like this. Where's that ball? Where's that ball? Where's that ball? And boom, it just landed in a breadbasket. Right in the breadbasket from Blake Shapen. Awesome play, awesome connection by those two. Defensively for Mississippi State, look at the stat line from Sam Leavitt. 10 of 22, 82 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Now, that's not going to get it done if you're an Arizona State Sun Devil. If you get a stat line right there, you read me this stat line. You read me this stat line during the week. Hey, Sam Leavitt's going to go less than 50% completion percentage. He's going to have less than 100 yards passing. He's only going to have 1 touchdown. And he's going to turn the ball over twice. Who's going to win that football game? And I would say 10 times out of 10, Mississippi State. Boom. Yes. And that's exactly why it happened. The defense from Mississippi State was good all night through the air. Now, rushing, you would like to hold them below 200 yards rushing. Didn't happen. Doesn't matter. You win the football game. Mississippi State, my biggest takeaway from them is they have an offense that can compete. Okay, that passing game is legit. They have an offense that can compete. Still a little questionable offensive line, but through the air, they can get it done. And they have a defense that is serviceable. Okay, last year they didn't have a defense. The defense this year is serviceable. They can turn the ball over. They can get after the quarterback. Against the run, we'll see the rest of the season, but they can get some things done. Mississippi State, good for them. Arizona State, this was always going to happen this year. It was always going to be a regression year. It was always going to be a step back from last year. You went to the playoffs, almost won a playoff game. That was about as good as it's going to get for a Big 12 team, okay? It was always going to be a regression. We saw it happening. Now, everything's still in front of you if you're an Arizona State Sun Devil fan. Everything is still right there, right in front of you, okay? You can still go win the Big 12 because the Big 12 just, in comparison to other conferences, has everything kind of jam-packed tightly, okay? You can still go win if you're an Arizona State fan. Go win it. Get back to the playoff, lose a playoff game, and you'll have a successful season, okay? Now we are at the muffins in the Ian Fritz show, okay? How do I explain this? You see that muffin pan. You see a man in the muffin pan. You're thinking, what is going on? What is going on? We do something here ever since the beginning of this show 2 years ago where we certify somebody as a stud muffin. You know, there's stud muffins out there, but we certify them on this show. We certify them as a stud muffin from either a fan base, a coach, a player, a certain play. We certify it as a stud muffin because in a big time moment, in a big time game, those people, that coach, that player, that fan base did something extraordinary. Okay, and that's when we certify them as a stud muffin for that week. You can get it revoked. But for that week, boom, certified stud muffin. Okay, a little bit of history. The first ever certified stud muffin was Cam Ward 2 years ago when he was at Washington State. Look how that turned out. That turned out pretty good. So you better pay attention to these certified stud muffins, okay? In week 1, we had Gus Malzahn, offensive coordinator for the Florida State Seminoles. This week, who are we going? You're thinking, is it going to be John Mateer? We just talked about him. No, it is not. It is not going to be John Mateer. You're thinking, oh, baby, could it be Luke Altmaier for the Illinois Fighting Illini? You're thinking, that's not a bad one. That's not a bad one. Stud muffin, yes, we're not going to certify it. We are certifying this man right here, Sawyer Robertson, okay, Baylor quarterback. Here's why we're going to certify him as a stud muffin. You go to Dallas, you play the SMU Ponies. You're down 14 with about 5 minutes left to go in that fourth quarter, and you lead your team in a comeback way with this stat line. 34 out of 50, 68% completion percentage. 440 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That's a big-time game from a big-time player in a big-time moment, okay? That is what the Certified Stud Muffin Award is all about. Sawyer Robertson, you have been a certified stud muffin. Congratulations, sir. He deserves it. Congratulations to Sawyer Robertson joining Gus Malzahn in the 2025 Certified Stud Muffin pan. And we're just going to move right along here, folks. Week 3, what if poll. We're jumping right in. Let me take a sip here before I start naming off these teams here, folks. Again, while I'm taking a sip here, comment down below if you want one of these mugs. Comment down below what you disagree with about the what if poll here in 5 minutes. Subscribe, turn that bell on, and I'll interact with you. All right, what is the what if poll? 1, it's my top 25. Why is it called the what if poll? I like to think of it as, well, my name is Ian Fritz, so if makes sense. But what if what we see through the season is what these teams actually are? What if we ranked them based on what we've seen? Okay, what if poll. Makes sense. We're ranking the 25 teams based on what we've seen on these fields through 2 weeks. We're jumping right in. We are jumping right in. The Clemson Tigers at number 25. I almost just dropped them out of the 25, ladies and gentlemen. I almost dropped them out of here. Okay, and if you have them out of here, no complaints from Ian. No complaints from the Ian Fritz Show. Extremely disappointing week 1. Even more so, extremely disappointing week 2 against Troy. Look, Troy's a good football team, solid football team. You're the Clemson Tigers. You're the Clemson Tigers. You have talent out the door. And you're going to let Troy run all over you, impose their will on you? I don't think so. I need to see a lot more from the Clemson Tigers. Not a good situation right now in Death Valley half. Alabama Crimson Tide at number 24. Again, if you don't have Alabama in your top 25, I'm okay with that. However, they showed enough against, I know it's UL Monroe, but they scored about a bazillion points on UL Monroe, and UL Monroe did not score. I've seen enough from them. They still have a lot of talent and a lot of ability on that team. Okay, don't count the Crimson Tide out just yet. But at 24, I think that's a reasonable spot for them to be. Okay, AP has them mid teens. Okay. Next up, Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets continue to build. Haynes King didn't even play, and they had a solid win. Okay. Michigan Wolverines. I struggled with this one a little bit. I almost dropped Michigan out of the top 25. However, the game they played, the defense is still really good. The defense played good enough to get them a win against an Oklahoma team that is going to shock some people this year. So I kept them in the top 25, right there at number 22. At number 21, the Ole Miss Rebels. I kept them at 21. They worried me for the majority of that football game. I was thinking, oh no, not again, Lane. Not again, Lane Kiffin. You cannot be doing this against Kentucky again. You can't happen. It didn't happen, but it was close. Also, they didn't cover. Not good. At number 20, we have the Texas Tech Red Raiders. The offense is unbelievable. Defense, still some questions. However, they have not played anybody. They would be higher if they've played anybody. They've played maybe two of the worst teams in the entire country, but the offense, I think they have some firepower there. Right in front of them, the Utah Utes. Okay, look, some people want Utah in the top 10. No, I'm not going to put Utah in the top 10. They've played a UCLA team that is absolute garbage, okay, and they played another team that's absolute garbage. Killed them, knocked them out of the building, ran right over them, just said, Utah, yeah, we're going to steamroll you, okay? Good for you, Utah. Good for you, Utah. But the teams you beat stink. They stink big time, okay? Texas A&M, right in front of them. The skill position for Texas A&M, their wide receivers, their running backs, they are deep and they are loaded at all of those positions. Going to be a fun team to watch this year. At number 17, making their appearance in the 2025 What If poll this year, we have the Missouri Tigers. Okay, if you follow me on social media, you should. Right there, at Ian Fritz Show on all those platforms, and you will find me. I do winners and losers every Sunday, and one of my winners this week was me. And you're thinking, well, that's a little selfish, little tooting your own horn. And yes, I'm tooting my own horn because I believed in Bo Prabula when nobody did. Nobody believed in Bo Prabula. There were rankings of best SEC quarterbacks. Bo Prabula was second to last, and a lot of them he wasn't even in the top 10. I said, what is this list? Bo Prabula is a dog, okay? And he's going to shock some people this year. And what he did against the Kansas Jayhawks yesterday, he is shocking people. We believe in him. Congratulations, Missouri Tigers and Bo Prabula. Right in front of them, the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Look, again, they have one of the most impressive wins in all of college football this year against the Arizona State Sun Devils. They have one of the most impressive wins in the entire country. I have to rank them. They may go out next week and lose, and we'll drop them. But that's what these polls need to be. We've only seen 2 football games from the majority of these football teams. There needs to be volatility. There needs to be movement week in and week out. It shouldn't be stagnant week in and week out. It needs to move, just like these teams fluctuate with how good they play each week. It needs to move, folks. It needs to move, and it needs to be based on their body of work. At number 15, Notre Dame. Fighting Irish. Okay, look, they're 0-1. Yes, I know that. They lost to what is a highly ranked team in my poll here by 3 points on the road and had a chance to win the football game at the end. So they're a solid football team. Iowa State Cyclones, 3-0. Only 3-0 team in the country, I believe. Solid season so far from the Iowa State Cyclones. I need to see a little bit more. But you went up against really good defense from the Iowa Hawkeyes. I like what I see from Cyclones and Rocco Beck so far this year. Next up, Texas Longhorns. I'm going to take a sip here. I already hear the boos. I already hear the jeers coming my way from you Texas fans. Look, you're 1-1, okay? I'm not going to have you above a lot of 2-0 teams. I do have you above a lot of 2-0 teams, but I'm not going to have you above a lot of them because, one, the only win you have is against San Jose State. They stink. You forced about 12 turnovers and you only put up 38 points. Okay? That's a little concerning. Also, Arch Manning. He has something wrong with his shoulder, folks. He was also a loser in my winners and losers. Go check out that video on social media to explain why he was a loser. But there is something wrong with Arch Manning's shoulder. It concerns me. Next up, South Carolina Gamecocks. Could have dropped them a little further, but they're 2-0. A little concerning right now. You only beat South Carolina State. You were losing at the end of first quarter. What's that about? At number 11, the Georgia Bulldogs. You're thinking, Ian, didn't you have them in the top 5 last week? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And I did not like what I saw against Austin Peay. Okay? Austin Peay. I did not like what I saw from the Georgia Bulldogs against Austin Peay. So we drop them. They could vault right back up next week, folks. That's what this is. Volatility. Okay? What we see, what we get, you rank them. Okay? At number 10, Penn State Nittany Lions. I haven't seen a lot from them in their 2 games against absolute garbage teams that make me think, yeah, this is going to be a national title team. It could change. It could change. I still have them at number 10. It's not like I have them at 30, okay? At number 9, Tennessee Volunteers. Offensively, yeah, it hasn't changed at all. This is a team to look out for offensively. At number 8, LSU Tigers right in front of them. I dropped them. They were my number 1 team last week. And after what I saw from Clemson, I thought, well, that win's not as good as I thought it was anymore. And you didn't play that good against Louisiana Tech. Okay, so you're going to drop. You're going to fall down. You were going to fall down in the rankings. At number 7 and number 6, we have the USF Bulls and the Illinois Fighting Illini. USF, some are thinking, that is way too high, Ian. Way too high. No, it's not. You look at all the resumes in all of college football, USF has the best 2-win resume in all of college football. They beat a solid Boise State team, a Boise State team that a lot of the country thought was going to make the college football playoff again this year. And then you have a Florida Gator team that a lot of the country, including myself, thought was going to be really solid this year, possible fringe playoff team this year. And you go in and beat them on the road, yeah, you're going to be highly rated. Also, Illinois, Fighting Illini. I got to figure out a way to say this. I think they are properly ranked here. Okay, I don't think I could have them any lower. They go on the road and dominate and blow out a Duke Blue Devil team that I think is better than what the end of that score shows. Okay, now end of the day, I don't think Illinois is a college football title contender based on what I've seen through 2 weeks. I don't think they're as good as this ranking says they are, even though I think this is where they need to be ranked. That's why I have them there. But you win the turnover battle against a Duke Blue Devil team 5-0, you should win by 26. You should probably win by more, okay? So I think that game they play again is a closer game. I still think we'll see what happens. You can't take turnovers away, but I think that game is going to skew people's view on Illinois and Duke, okay? So I think there's going to be 2 things happen from that game. Illinois is going to get inflated, and Duke is going to get deflated when I think they're closer in football than you would think. Just 5 turnovers from Duke. You can't have 5 turnovers. That's gonna screw you up big time. At number 5, the Oklahoma Sooners. They have one of the most impressive wins in all of college football. They dominated Michigan for 85-90% of that entire football game. John Mateer is a dude. Ben Arbuckle is a dude. And the defense is unbelievable. At number 4, the Oregon Ducks. Anytime you beat another Power 4 program, a team that was in their conference title game 4 years ago, you beat them by 70, you're going to move up in the rankings. You're going to move up in the rankings. At number 3, Florida State Seminoles. Again, this team is for real. I sounded the alarm last week because I know ball, and I saw what I saw. This team is for real. Right in front of them, Miami Hurricanes, also a team that is for real. And then at number 1, you have the Ohio State Buckeyes. This was the team in my way too early top 25 that was number 1, and they are still there. Ohio State, Miami, Florida State, Oregon, Oklahoma. That is your top 5. That is the Week 2 recap. Stay tuned for the Week 3 preview show later in this week. Follow me on social media. I do a video every single day on there. Comment down below what you disagree with, what you would like to see in some certain shows. Leave a voicemail at the number below. Send an email, and we'll get back to you. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I love you. Bye.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. It's picked up by Michigan State's Jalen Watts Jackson, and he scores on the last play of the game.
45, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis.